Okay, so today we are going to dive into your journey with nutrition, um, and how over the years, like things that have happened to you or you've acknowledged or learned has changed your perception of what you were giving yourself to what you are giving yourself now. So if we can maybe
Okay.
start with going back to childhood and what did your
Yeah.
nutrition look like then?
Okay. So my nutrition in childhood was very poor. Um, we didn't seem to, as a family, we didn't seem to have any kind of uh how do I put it? Like there wasn't an ethos around food. It was just whatever we wanted, we ate. And in a way, but I make it like fast food, quick food. Not that we would buy food from the shops in that way, like from takeaways, but more like that it was something from the freezer. So we would be like I remember when we were children, I'm one of three. I'm actually one of four, but at the time I was only one of three because the fourth came much later.
Okay,
Um, so um, so I've got a twin sister, and me and my twin sister decided to go vegetarian at the age of 7, and that was an emotional decision based on the fact that we didn't want to eat animals.
okay,
Now, so that we were the first in the family to do that. Um, and the sort of food we ate before that would have been probably semi-traditional type food, like meat and veg on, especially on a Sunday. But there was also a lot of poor quality food, so fish fingers, chips, things out
yeah,
the freezer, stuff
processed
that was
foods.
processed food. Yeah, yeah. And then, so from the age of 7 to 14, my twin and I ate pretty much the same as everybody else, but left the meat out. And we
Okay,
didn't really replace the protein. And then from the age of 14, we decided to go vegan. So we were becoming more aware of the plight of animals, and we were both very sort of empathic, sensitive children, and decided that the best way to be in the world was to not, was to reduce any suffering. So we decided to not eat anything from animals. That included honey, leather shoes, full on militant vegan.
yeah, okay.
Um,
So let's just go back to that emotional decision that you made. Can you
yeah.
pinpoint the moment you decided, oh, actually, I'm not going to eat meat anymore, or was it like a steady influx of information that made you decide that?
It's hard to remember. I do remember the decision making. I
Mm,
remember kind of getting to that point. Um, but I don't remember whether there would what led to it really. It was
okay,
just, I think it would have been something that, out of our passion for animals, me and my twin probably felt that was the natural step.
okay, cool. So you went from vegetarian to vegan, and then it was like
Yeah.
a that extreme militant level vegan. Okay. So then
Yeah.
from there, so how was that for you?
We were basically given, um mum, we were in a single parent family, so mum gave us the money that she would spend on food to buy our own food. And we just bought all the ultra processed vegan food. Now, this was a long time ago. So when I was 14, um, veganism was like an alien word. It wasn't even in most people's vocabulary.
Yeah.
We'd go to health food shops to buy things that were like meat substitutes, and that was things like sauce mix, burger mix, and nut roasts, things like that, that were sort of designed in the 70s or the 80s and then produced for health food shops. They would have been full of hydrogenated fat. Their sauce mix and burger mix were full of like little pellets of fat. They would have been soya protein, and we used to eat that and chips all the time, like, and beans and all processed foods. No, hardly any fresh foods. Very little nutrition, very little proper nutrition. And we continued to do that. So that was in place right the way through. So I left home at 16 and continued to eat that sort of poor quality food, very ultra processed. So when I was living, I then moved out into a house that had a very squalid kitchen. So it was a shared house, and the kitchen wasn't really usable. So I used to eat from the chip shop that was up the road, and I would literally be living off things like chips from the chippy and cans of fizzy sweet drink. Um, that went on for some time, probably, yeah, for some time until I got to about the age of 27, 28. So other things had happened, I was now in a steady relationship and I was pregnant at the age of 27. And just before then, I decided to go macrobiotic. So in that, because I noticed that there were other people who were vegan and vegetarian who looked much healthier than me. So I knew I needed to do something different because I was very unwell a lot of the time, very painful stomach issues, very sensitive to bugs that would go around. So I would always be the person who'd get a stomach bug.
So it's like your
Um,
immune system was weak.
Definitely very weak. And it had been ever since I was a child as well. I was always prone to stomach issues.
So that was before you
And
even went to the veggie side of things.
I remember it more after being vegetarian, between veggie and yeah, and so after probably because I don't have much memory before 7,
Hmm.
I'd say. So I definitely felt it later on,
Okay.
from 7 onwards that I would have been very prone to stomach bugs. I mean, I basically used to think if I saw somebody that had a stomach bug, I would definitely get it. That would be 100%. And that continued for quite a long time, actually, 'cause, even when I was post macrobiotic. So anyway, there was this need to improve my diet, especially combining that with having a child. Thinking, right, so I need to change everything I'm eating to what it looks like is healthy around me. I saw people that worked in the health food shop, and I thought they looked pretty healthy. There was somebody there that I connected with, and I learned from her all about macrobiotics. Now, that meant a vast change in my diet. So I bought all the books on the topic. I learned from these Japanese Americans. So people that had gone to live in America that were Japanese were bringing their culture to the American diet and sort of saying how if we can um, transform, basically, they used to call it the standard American diet. If we can transform away from the standard American diet into these basic whole grain and whole food diet, then everybody would be, we'd all be so much healthier. Obesity would drop, all of that stuff. It did seem as if my body responded quite well to whole foods because certain things come into balance. Like it felt like I remember feeling at the time like I went to my right weight. But it was a massive deal to make that change because I had to learn how to cook all these different foods. So sometimes I would literally be head in hands crying at the thought of trying to get a meal together when I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know what I'm cooking. It was a massive change, like brown rice every day. If it wasn't brown rice, it would be millet and other grains like barley, some of which are really quite indigestible, I realize now. But at the time, it was a majority of whole grains, whole beans and lentils and vegetables, and very little of anything else. No sugar, no dairy, no cheese, any of that. No meat, obviously, no fish. So we're very sparse if you think about it in nutritional ways, and fats, like we would have had sunflower oil and sesame oil, and that's it. Not really any bread, cut bread out completely. Did in time learn to make sourdough bread. Um, so lived like that. Oh, seaweeds and seeds. That was also in the diet.
Okay.
And something called miso, which is really good for gut health, and it's meant to be very, very good for you, miso. alongside seaweeds as they are. Anyway, over time, I got good at cooking the food, and we got quite inventive with making all sorts of nice puddings and dishes as we had our son, and we had foster kids at the time, and we learned how to make good party food for kids, and it all kind of we rocked along okay. And but then we got to, so when my son was 10, so we've been vegan macrobiotic for some time now at this point. That would have been a good 10 years vegan macrobiotic, maybe 11 or 12 years. We all started to get ill. So it's like the nutrition ran out. It's like
Mhm.
whatever was there was depleted, and all of us got ill in quite an extreme way. So our partner got an illness. Well, it was an illness that kind of became an illness of every organ of the body, including the skin. Um, that he was ill for between 3 and 5 years. My son got a serious eye condition, which turned out really badly. That was not great. And I realized I had lots of decaying teeth at the back of my mouth. So we reached a crisis point. Now, if we think that if we think about the fact that, what was driving me at the time was thinking that what we eat then represents our health. So if we're all run down, it's clearly what we're eating. So everything I've read in those books about this being the ultimate diet was actually failing me now. It wasn't the ultimate diet. Now, to be fair to the macrobiotics, that whole sort of theory, they did used to have fish in their diet. So that, in those books, it would be promoted that we would eat fish once or twice a week, and we never did.
Okay.
So I can't say I 100% did that diet. But from the point of us all getting ill, we realized we needed to change. And I had to let all those great ideals go about not eating animals and actually start to eat a broader diet. And I went to see a consultant, a sort of macrobiotic consultant. I went to see a nutritionist, and we also had to see a homeopath eye condition, which did help that because it's too much detail to go into that. But there were other things that were going on for him that he was clearly not well.
Hmm.
So from that point, everything changed. And I was actually living on Dartmoor at the time, and I remember um, noticing my son coming out of school. There we were on what I thought was a healthy diet, and I saw him come out of school totally pale, and the rest of the kids were all rosy cheeked and probably farming children, and and um, and so this struck a chord with me. Like, so the people who are here and doing what's traditional look well. Those of us coming in doing something different, we all look unwell. I've got a problem with my teeth. It was just like this awareness was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing is that with veganism came a very fundamental viewpoint, which was this is the only way, and this is the only way to be healthy, and that was not true. So for me, that wasn't true. I'm sure there are some people who can make it work. For me, absolutely not. It was not right in various now. Now on reflection, I can see that I was not very well at all.
So
Um,
it's that it's almost you having to go on that journey to experience that for yourself to understand what it took from you and what it gave to you. And just going back on that viewpoint as well, like the viewpoint of why you were doing it to um uh, like the empathy for the animals,
mm,
um and that like overriding um I don't want to say conditioning, but like in that sort of environment, you're fed information and like news and things like that, and it makes you feel like you're serving a higher purpose. So you had to let go of
Yeah,
all of that to actually serve
yeah,
yourself.
exactly. That's right.
So that must
And
have been quite
exactly.
difficult to, well, not quite difficult, because over that period of time you realized the impact it was having on you and your family. So then that,
Mm,
witnessing that impact helped you make that change, helped you make that decision, helped you let
yeah,
go of that belief system.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. That is so right that there was something about how I wanted to be in the world was this ideal and this core principle of mine. But actually, what I had to do is let that go and focus on what I really needed. And it took me a long time to really believe that I would need that because of being, to need meat, because I felt very conditioned in that this can't be right that we would need to eat meat. Um, it depends where you are in society and the way of what beliefs you have around diet and food. But for me, very much at the time, I was convinced that nobody could be healthy on meat. That's not the way. It's hard to digest. It's all these things that the fats are bad. All of those things had really become part of my thinking.
Yeah,
So it was, and to actually go into a butcher's. So for years, I would have despised a butcher on the street in the way of, smell, wouldn't want to engage with it, wouldn't want to look in there at the dead animals in my mind. And all of that had to change. And I had to make that adjustment into actually being okay with going in to a butcher's and buying some meat. And so it was a slow transition, even though, and I think got a feeling, but I went into it and then I came back out of it before. That's right, I did do that. So I kind of took up things like butter and eating fish, and then came back from that and thought, no, I don't need to do that. But then went back again. Must have been a whole process of being ill again, maybe, and then
yeah,
thinking, I do need to eat those foods. So I had it reinforced. And then from that point, um, yeah, I just basically brought animal protein into my diet from that point. And for my son and my partner also, we all ate meat on a regular basis after that. And and how that sort of joins, how that comes to now is that I've actually recently um, listened on an audiobook all about the keto diet, and and a lot of the myths that have been really, really programmed into my mind about animal fats and cholesterol and even eating such things as seed food. So if we think of anything that is a seed, that's a whole grain rice or sesame seeds or whole beans. These are the seed foods are that I have been eating all those years. The keto way of seeing it is that those seed foods are actually very hard to digest. And they're designed to be hard to digest because they're designed to be picked up by a bird, and the bird might fly some distance, and then the seed comes out of the bird when it releases it again, and the seed needs to stay intact through the bodily system of the bird. So it actually needs to remain,
whole,
well protected with a
yeah,
good hard shell.
mm,
Um, and understanding that helped me see that if I was going to eat rice now, which I still do occasionally, brown rice, then I'm going to need to soak it first. I'm going to need to make it more digestible. Now, I used to do that with beans when being macrobiotic. I would always soak the beans the night before. That was part of the practice, but not really rice. So I wouldn't have done that with rice. So by listening to the keto book, I've brought other things into my diet and other practices, which I feel is really benefiting me. So one of them was the use of pork lard and dairy ghee and beef dripping, also known as tallow.
yeah,
So all of those fats have been um, I've sort of introduced them probably since I'd say in the last year. And I've noticed my skin is much better on my hands. Um, Also, what I understood from doing the research after I started eating those animal fats, was how much vitamin D is in organic animal fat. So whether that's pork or beef or whatever, there's a high level of those good core nutrients, A, D, I think E, but especially D. Now, D is really significant for us, isn't it? That we live, if we don't take, if we're not under the sun enough, and I work indoors most of the time, so I'm not under the sun. Even if it's summer, I'm not in the sun enough. Even if I'm out in it every day, it's not enough.
enough.
So the pork lard especially is very, as long as it's organic. Now it needs to be organic because the pigs need to have lived under the sun in order to absorb the vitamin D, and then we can process it and utilize it for ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, it's a long road I've been on to feel okay with this, because it still troubles me that I would think it's okay for another animal to die for me to live. So I still struggle with that, but I have to push my emotional response and my empathy logic out, and I have to bring in my self-care, what we've done for years that's traditional, how good I feel, how lean I am, how much energy I have,
Yeah.
how well I sleep. All of that
Mhm.
comes into that sense of well-being, which means that I feel like I'm doing the right thing now.
Yeah. Like all of those things add to your fundamental needs to like thrive.
Yes.
As so going like looking back on your journey, um, the it's almost like you did what you had with the information you had at the time,
Mm.
and you did what you thought was best at the time with the information you had.
Mm.
And as the journey has gone on, you've gained more insight, more information, more like understanding of yourself, like understanding of how it makes you feel, and that like bringing that awareness to, oh, actually, it could be what's coming in, and then let's figure that out and let's play around with it and let's change it. And then you've got to where you are now. And
Mm.
I say it with my journey as well. Like you can only do what you can do with the information you have. So if the
Mm.
information that you need is not there at that moment, you're doing the best thing for you right now. And then the fact that you've added in things this year, so you're still adapting and changing and
Mm.
learning and growing, like it is that never ending journey, isn't it? Like there is always going to be things that you can remove, add, take away, and it's having the ability to turn off that emotional like element and
Yeah,
and really hone into actually how you feel and how it like allows you to perform.
that's it. Yeah. And there's so much that connects with that, in the way of like sort of like how to heal self, um, understanding the energies in foods and what we need, that what warms us, what cools us. Because the macrobiotic part of it all was understanding that every food source, everything that we eat has an energy associated with it, and that's defined by yin and yang. And so that's ancient um, Eastern traditions. That's that learning, that understanding. And I've used that throughout my life to recover from illnesses. So I work out whether I'm out of balance one way or the other, and that partly tuning into what do I feel like I really need, and then giving myself that and seeing if it works. And that can be quite, so for instance, post-COVID, not that I don't know if I had COVID, I don't know whether what, anyway, a flu. Um, I found that I was very hungry for red meat. Now I could literally eat red meat every single day,
Yeah,
and I would only feel better when I had it. I would only, feel like that was just what I needed, and I couldn't believe how much I could eat it, um, and not feel like that it was too much. I would have, I kept, because it's 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 in being in conflict for years of being told that red meat is not good for us.
Yeah.
That I'm still struggling with that. You know, I'm still going. I wonder if I'll get a heart attack one day because
Yeah.
I'm eating too much animal fat. When I feel great, I have great energy. I feel like, you know, I don't take any extra supplements.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, touch wood, but I haven't suffered too much in the way of colds and flus. So this year, since I've been doing all this,
Yeah.
additional bits to the diet. And I know I hate saying this because you know, as soon as you say something, it'll be you'll go and get it. But I'll just say my overall health feels quite stable. I'm not going to pinpoint it
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because
It's
I don't want to tempt fate.
it's it is it's interesting to that 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 thing that you've been fed about the red meat is bad for you, and that's been ingrained for so many years, and how you still have that like surrounding around it. It's really hard. Like once it's because it's all you've ever known, and then someone comes in and actually is like, actually, it's okay. It's
Mm,
not going to hurt you, but that it's like however many years of that's the right thing, and then like a small
mm.
amount of years of that's the right thing.
Yeah,
It's that like balance, isn't it? It's like tipping
yeah,
that balance.
it
And I
really
guess
is.
I guess if we look at all of it as a whole, everything out there, no matter what food you're eating, like there's always a contradiction to it. There's
Mm,
always going to be someone saying, "Oh no, that's the best way," and that's the best way. And then actually, really, the best way is to discover yourself what
mm.
is best for you. Because what
Yeah,
works for you might not work for me, might not work for someone else. Someone
yeah,
else might be thriving off of
yeah.
a certain diet, and it's listening to the body
Mm,
without listening to the information, because the body probably truly knows what it needs and what it doesn't
mm,
need and what it likes and what it doesn't like. But if you're then bringing in information, and then that information is like being put into the mind and the body are like, or like it's almost like just ignoring what's being told and listening to the reaction from the body. And that's like a really hard thing to do.
yeah, absolutely. It's like suspending everything you've been taught or told and actually just tuning into what you feel like you need.
Mm, yeah. I remember, I don't know if I've told you this before, but I remember, I think we might have had this discussion before, where there was that study done on children and they all had illnesses, certain illnesses, and there was like a buffet table of food like laid out, and every
Mm,
single child went to the food that was known to help the condition that they had. So like
no
there was a
way.
child like I think it was like below the age of 5, and they had all these foods on the table, and there was like the child went to get the raw liver that helped with a certain thing that they were struggling with. So they didn't know what they had. Like obviously the study did. And yeah, every single child went to the food that was required, and that's like there was no it's yeah, when you think of it like that,
Mm,
it really is all there, and everything else is just something that's been put there, but it's getting
absolutely, yeah.
yeah. So with all of your learning and the journey that you've been on, like, and if somebody's out there trying to improve things in their life or their diet, like what advice or what would you like say to them to like things to focus on that could actually help lead them to that next chapter of the journey.
Um, it's really hard because it depends where someone's at. You know what they'll have already tried. Um, that keto book was life changing for me to
Hmm.
sort of have the what we've been taught traditionally, have that contradicted was actually quite helpful. Um, understanding the yin and yang has always been vital to me. but that was a deep bit of study I did a long time ago. Um, and I guess the other one is really thinking about how you feel after eating something. Like, does it make you feel good, or do you feel like you've got no energy? Because yeah, I feel like quite quickly whether or not something's helped or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's almost like having the information there, like taking information in, so you're like aware of like the different information, but then acting on what you think your body needs and then listening to the response of the body. So it's not
Yeah.
necessary. It's just like the fact that, I mean, all of the things you just said there was like you educated yourself, you like went above and beyond to research certain areas,
Mm.
and then you took what you needed from that, give it to yourself, listen to the response, and then like took it or left it type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is basic. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for sharing your journey. And
You're welcome.
it's good to understand that you can make changes, even though, like, I mean, you went from eating the standard diet to going to veggie, to going to vegan, to going back to like tradition, but on a level of like actually organic and really
Yeah, that's
understanding where
right.
it comes from
Yeah.
and where you're getting it from. So it's good to know that taking that emotion away from it can allow you to make positive changes.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. 100%.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for that. And
Thanks,
yeah,
George.
catch you on another one.
Okay.